All right, we are back with the final episode of the season of Okay and this episode is super special to me because I have a dear friend of mine, an award-winning journalist, host, influencer, podcaster. Listen, if you know anything about media, especially Black women in media, you know this woman. Gia Peppers, how you doing, boo?
Thank you. I was over here holding my heart, child. Thank you for that beautiful intro. It's so nice to be here with Leah Henry. Okay.
Yeah,
I like the
okay.
clap.
And listen, I'm so excited to have you because when I thought about creating this podcast, I honestly planned to do this podcast before I got laid off.
Yeah.
But then, of course, I get laid off. And then this was even just more of a confirmation
Yeah.
of why I needed to do this podcast.
Yeah.
And I was planning to honestly leave Columbus before I got laid off. And obviously, that was going to leave me without a traditional media role. And
Hmm.
when I thought about like people who have kind of landed on their feet,
Hmm.
leaving these traditional jobs, you are the poster girl for that. So I'm excited to have you, sis.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here and I'm so excited to see you stepping into this new chapter with so much focus. I love it.
Yes, girl. We trying to get some things established around here. And speaking of getting things established, I was doing my research and I was looking into your story, and one of the things that we have in common is our love for Donnie Simpson.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the things you've been quoted to say was Donnie Simpson was one of those people who showed you that you could be a good person and be in this industry. And I always say the same thing. When I worked at KYS in DC for the almost 10 years I did, Donnie Simpson constantly just showed me that you can be a good human being
Mm.
and be in this industry. So when
Yeah.
I saw that, I was like, see, me and Gia, we cut from the same cloth.
Yes, ma'am.
So
Donnie
talk to
is.
me about that early hustle for you. You went to school, you started interning right
Mhm.
off the ground,
Mhm.
but that first internship with Donnie Simpson, talk
Wow.
to me about that.
Yes. Okay. So many moons ago, I was in college, and my dad is a journalist, so I come from a very well-rounded understanding of media and what it takes to make it in media because my dad's journey to where he ended up being, in front offices and doing amazing things from NPR to CNN to AP to WAMU, a lot of different places. And the biggest thing he told me was you've got to know people more than what matters in this industry is who knows you and what you're able to show that you can do, and the best way to develop those relationships is to get an internship. So growing up in DC and Maryland, the Wizards were our team. We had many different iterations of that team, but we ain't got time for that. But anyway, Big Tigger was the in arena host and DJ, and my parents used to have season tickets. So when we would go, I would always be like, okay, I hear him on the radio, and now he's here. So that means I can ask him how to get on the radio. And I was way too scared. I told my sister, and then he told me to apply for on the website. And when I was selected as Donnie's morning show intern, and it happened to be his last summer at WPGC, which is the other radio station in the DMV other than WKYS. And I remember, my mother is a third generation Washingtonian. When Donnie Simpson came on the radio, that was her boyfriend. That was like we used to listen to him every morning. Huggy Lowdown, all the different people. I mean, Donnie
Right.
was and is one of the quintessential voices of our time. And I was nervous when I first met him, but he immediately just makes your nerves melt away. And I remember
Mhm.
that summer, not only did it give me my first chance to be on radio and do Housewives recaps because it was like the first season of Real Housewives of Atlanta,
Potomac.
and Beyonce's first tour by herself. This was when she was on tour with Missy Elliott and Alicia Keys. It was the Verizon Ladies first tour. So there was all these things popping up at the same time. And Donnie was like, no, I am not covering that. The audience cares about it. I don't. And I was like, well, I care about it. And he would let me do those recaps. But my favorite thing was watching him create a safe space for anyone, from the janitor who was coming to pick up the trash for the day, from the producers that were helping research, and we would come in the studio and help research, to Jill Scott or the mayor of DC or whoever. Everybody left walking taller. And in the time of the this industry moment, the other conversation that was happening was, you hustle till you die, you don't sleep,
Mm-hmm.
everybody can't get it, it's only gonna be you. And it was just like, no, no, I didn't want to step on anybody to get to a
To
place
the
that
top.
I
Come
believe
on.
I wanted to go. And so I looked at Donnie and I'm like, oh, he's being nice. He's listening to
Mm-hmm.
people. He's showing people that it's okay to be a good person and to be light and be happiness. And so I was so grateful, because part of me was too afraid to step into an industry that was only sharks, when my light is the reason why I wanted to be there in the first place, to be a prism of God's goodness, a vessel of his light.
Come
Like,
on.
having that step changed everything for me and let me know, it affirmed that I could do it. So shout out to Donnie Simpson forever.
Yeah, no, I love that. And it's so true. He's so inviting. He's such a great human being. He can make anyone in the room feel like the biggest person in the room. So
Yeah.
when I saw that, I was like, I love that, because I had that same exact experience with him. One of the things that I thought was interesting that I read about you was when you were working in news formally,
Mm.
Sandy Hook was that kind of final I'm not doing it moment. I
Yeah.
can't do news. I don't want to do it. That was kind of my thing. I always wanted to do radio because radio was not as heavy as news. And the moment that actually changed everything for me was when my family became national news. So I don't know if you remember this, but there were a series of bombings in Austin, and they were dropping packages off at people's doors and they were blowing up. Well, my little cousin was actually the little 17-year-old boy at the time who had passed away
Oh my
due
God.
to that bombing. And I remember the anxiety that I got
Mm.
when the police were doing the high speed chase with the guy who was creating the bombs. And I remember I had to leave the newsroom because I just didn't want to see it. You know, when you're working in news, you're up early, you're watching, you got the camera feeds, and this is the person who murdered my little cousin. So I'm
Yeah.
watching this play out, and I that was the day that I was like, Leah, you got to get to radio. You got to
Yeah.
get to something else other than this. So I
Yeah.
think for the girlies who do the traditional news route and then find out it's not for them, we all have a defining moment.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. That, first of all, I'm so sorry that happened to you.
No, it's
And
all
may
good.
your cousin and your family have some comfort and strength in this moment, because it's like we're also
Yeah.
living through so much trauma right now. And I pray that your
Mm-hmm.
cousin is resting in perfect peace and watching over
Amen.
all y'all right now. But I yeah, I my first day at CBS Radio News, I had gotten that job from going to the NABJ Career Fair. If you're a journalist,
Mm-hmm.
if you're a Black journalist, you need to
Yep.
step your foot into NABJ several times in your career. It's just a
Mm-hmm.
great space for us to feel seen, affirmed, and given opportunities. You know,
Supported. Yeah.
it's a foot in. And if you're in college, you should be in the NAB chapter on your campus, or be asking someone what is the local chapter, because it counts on the ground wherever you are. Um, Sandy Hook, the James Holmes trial, and the Sandusky trial were all happening on my first day in the newsroom. No, the Sandusky and James Holmes shooting and trials were happening on my first day, and then my last straw was Sandy Hook. In our country, we've seen cycles of just madness. I grew up. I was 11 when the snipers. I was like 10 when the snipers started, and 11 during 9/11. Millennials, we done been through it, child. God bless us. And I had never covered it. But even at 11, I knew I didn't want to do hard news, because my dad was covering 9/11 and couldn't come home for 5 days. And as a little 11-year-old girl, you like, I don't understand. My dad needs to help us here. We are frightened because the Pentagon was bombed after the World Trade Center. And so that's not far from my dad's job. That's not far from my mom's job. So I was like, where's you at? And he was calling us to check in, but he was running the newsroom. And in the same way that emergency room doctors have to stay on the floor until the people are okay, the people who are running the newsroom have to stay on board for all of the reports until everything has settled a little bit. And so that's when I first knew I didn't want to do hard news. And then the Sandy Hook trial happened, the Sandy Hook shooting happened, and it was around the holidays. And I just remember watching the live feeds before they go to national TV. And I was so heartbroken to see parents who had a 6 year old, 5, 6 year old in the morning have to come to the news the next morning or that night and say they don't know how this happened. They are just sick. And then to watch the country dismiss them was kind of just too much for me. You have to be desensitized to work in a hard newsroom. And I pray for the girlies who are in this time working. But I also am so proud of them because they are holding the line for us and being the people who are literally making sure that when these stories are told, we are talking about Columbia, but we're talking about Harvard. Like we're talking about the people who are fighting back with the same type of fortitude that we need to talk about the stupidity that happens too. Like we need both, and we need facts, and we need truth, and we need journalists. So whether you're spanning from news to sports, because sports is amazing, women's sports is amazing, to entertainment, to whatever, you matter where you are. And if you can't stay there, make a plan to get out. But I'll tell you, on the other side of this freelancing thing, it ain't all cute. See, either it's very hard everywhere in news and media, especially right now. I don't ever want people to be like, yeah, girl, you got it. No, I don't. No, just figuring it out. God is cool.
No, absolutely. And I was actually going to ask you that because I think that people believe that freelancing is independence, which it has a certain level of that. But I
Yeah,
think there's actually a lot more work that goes into it
right.
than having a 9 to 5. Like I've
Right.
had people suggest to me over the years throughout my career, like, girl, you can do it. Like, you don't need to work at that radio station. You could
Right.
do it by yourself. And I'm like, y'all, I like insurance. I like PT. I like to pay to go out the country, get paid while I'm out of the country. I like certain stability. I like to know that my bills are covered. And then anything I make outside of that, that's cool. But
Yeah.
there are some people who thrive on the independence of being a freelancer or a contractor as a media host or personality. And that's scary territory for me.
Yeah.
Like even walking into this season of being unemployed,
Yeah.
it makes me gulp because I'm like, who, Lord, it is truly an act of faith
Yep.
to put your life out there and just be like, all right, God,
Whatever you
I
got
trust
for.
you.
Right. Right. Yeah. 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 It's not easy at all. And there are moments where, I especially now, like it's one
Mhm.
thing to have experienced freelancing in like 2021, 2022, 2023. It was a very different time. The public sentiment was not against DEI. It was for DEI. It was for Black people. It
Mm,
was for everything. Now, content creators and Black journalists, hosts, leaders, thought leaders who were being booked so much they didn't need a 9 to 5 are now noticing that the checks ain't checking. The budgets are much
well,
smaller. We used to be able to get 4 or 5 figures. Now they like, could you do it for 3? Could you come for $1
hmm
to do the same work? Your gift hasn't changed. The
mm,
country, the situation has changed.
the
And so it
landscape.
is a hard time. Like I would never lie to someone and be like, yeah, girl, freelancing is easy. I think when I chose to step into freelancing, I was just so what happens when you get to dream positions and people tell you no at every turn is
Mm,
that you start to doubt your dream. And I started to doubt my dream, and it started to erode at my personal confidence, my trust in myself, and even started to shake my faith because I'm like, Lord, I went out because you said go. Lord, you
right,
said this,
right.
like da da da. And I had to sit with myself and really understand that maybe this place in this chapter in this time isn't for me. And I stepped
Yeah.
out on faith after working at my last desk job was at Essence I was the Essence Fest associate editor for I think the 2017 or 2018 Essence Festival. But I just remember going to festival, and my
hmm
co-host at the time for the Washington Wizards was there as a host, and he was making triple what I was making and doing 1/4 of the work I was doing. And I was like,
Mm.
I will be back next year as a talent.
Okay.
Working
Okay.
and yeah, I can't. I was like, I ain't seen no concerts. I'm back here writing. Like it was not the juice won't work the squeeze for me. I wanted to, and don't ever get me wrong. Working in a space is that, but that's the trade-off, right? The next summer I came back as a talent, but I didn't necessarily know that those bookings was going to happen. The summers after that, thank God, mostly I was booked, but it's not like guaranteed. I don't know if I'm going to be booked at Essence Fest this year. I pray so. God is good, hopefully. But if not, I had to learn how to divorce myself from the gigs and the bookings and allowing that to validate a yes over my life when God gave me the initial yes. And it's up to me to follow him no matter what is happening in this world. Even in this moment, I'm at a conference now called Accelerate Her, like, and I was sitting at the feet of Donna Brazile and Mignon Moore 30 minutes ago, and they were talking about how they ain't never been afraid to fight. So why would they back down now? They've never been afraid to show up for each other. In this moment, we're gonna have to just keep showing up for each other internally and move forward and understand that we've been here before. So for journalists and freelancers who are seeing this time, like, yes, save your money, be smart. If you got to take one of these little jobs that is online, pay your bills, do whatever keeps you from not drowning, but keep creating. Because just because somebody told you no doesn't mean that you can't share your work, doesn't mean that you can't interview people. Like the gift that we have, most of us love it so much we would do it for free. We don't want to do it for free, but we would do it for free because we know how it impacts others. So just keep doing your thing until it all aligns, because the yes on your life isn't from people around here. It's from a higher power.
Yeah, amen. That's a good word.
Yeah.
And one thing I will say is I love that you let God lead
Yeah.
everything that you do. You're very vocal about your faith. You're very vocal about God being center and present in your life, especially when it comes to navigating your career. You
Yeah.
said something to me, at matter of fact, at Essence Fest a few years ago. I did an interview with you, and one of the things that stuck out to me was we were talking about Black spaces, and you were talking about how companies are starting to lose these budgets, right, for Black initiatives and things like that. And one of the things you said that was like stuck out in my mind, because I've honestly heard this conversation. You know, when we work in media, you hear about everyone. You said there's not only a Gia Peppers, there are so many talented young Black girls who are in this industry, and I'm not the only one. There should be more room, there should be other opportunities, and there should be room for all of us to eat. And that said something to me about the God in you, but more importantly, your character. Because I've been in rooms where your name is the first name said automatically. And so it says something to me when a person whose name is typically first can say, but there are others. Why is that so important to you as you navigate your career to continue to pull up other Black girls and other Black talent behind you? Obviously, you're in the seat, and obviously, in the media industry, a lot of folk gonna put themselves first. But why was it important for you to
Yeah.
say, Gia is great, but here is
Yeah.
Nina Parker, here is Leah Henry, here
Yeah.
is Scotty Beam? Why is
Yeah.
that important to you?
First of all, I mean, it's just amazing to know y'all as people. So, like, as women in this industry who've known each other and supported each other, I can't help but speak your name. I know you're amazing, not only on stage and, you know, you got the Scotties, the Sylvias, the Ninas, the Yus, the Danielle Youngs. Like, there's so many women, literally so many women that like do this work, do it from a space of wanting vulnerability and connection, and women to understand that they are not alone and not crazy in their dreams or their ambitions or their sadness. Like, people, we need each other. And another thing that was just said on this panel, Angela Rye talked about it, how like we might get tired, but we work in shifts. So in season where I'm quiet, Lauren LaRosa is doing amazing, right? But still Black girls get to see a woman on screen doing the work. So for me, I'm like, we might not, there's going to be moments when you hot and there's moments when you booked, and then there's going to be moments where it's more quiet. But what I would hate to see is if it's moments where there's none of us. So yeah, everybody has to work, everybody has to eat, because there's going to be times when somebody needs to go live a personal life.
Mm,
Somebody needs to go understand what's going on with their taxes. Somebody needs to
okay.
go get spiritually aligned, because sometimes you get burnt out. And you
Yeah.
can't do it. You should not do it. Those working through everything will break you down. So like
Yeah.
we because we work in shifts because we need each other, because sisterhood is how we heal, because there's no reason why you can't have a show, but also because somebody held the door open for me. Somebody saw
Mm.
me and said, hey, she's special. Like I've come through so many programs like the Ween Academy with Felicia Butterfield Jones and Sabrina Thompson, and so many amazing women have been champions for me. I just saw Angela Yee this weekend. She's been an amazing champion for me. It's just I've known women to be amazing. And so who am I to close the door when they left it open for me? And
Mm.
we only are here for so much time. We don't I what? I don't want the legacy to be
That was a
over
word.
if I'm not here. Like God forbid something happened to me or any of the people that we love and know. Like we don't want, if Angie Stone, when Angie Stone passes, we don't want to not have any more voices that can sing her songs and honor her, or create music that was birthed because of something they heard through her voice. We can't do that. Like we don't get to do that. I think it's selfish. I've seen
Yeah.
women move like that, and it also isn't. The last thing I will say about it, because I know I'm rambling, but it also isn't up to us. You can try and block somebody's destiny. It's written for them. That was written for them way before you were thought. They were whatever. It's not you that gets to control it. So when somebody asks me for a recommendation on a producer on a show that I might have been booked on before, connection, here you go. Because if it's meant for you to be there, it's gonna be you or me. Now the turnover rates be high, so I don't know if these people are producers no more. But at the end of the day, like if it makes sense and I'm able to help someone, I'm gonna do my best to help someone. And there'll be times where I'm like, I'm tired, sis. I'm resting, love you, I will respond in a week. But then there's other times where I'm like, okay, I have it. Let me see, let me figure out how I can do it. So you have to try and hold the door open as much as you can. We're all one. We are all individual people, but we have to do it together, and we won't always get it right. I don't always get it right. There are moments where I've even cringed in my career, and I'm like, dang, I could have been nicer to that girl. I was having a really tough day, and it's not a lot, but it stands out for me because I'm very hard on myself, and I'm like, I need to, next time I see her, I need to talk to her about how I was just feeling, because sometimes the situations be nasty, and not from internally, like someone hired you to do one thing and now they ask you to do a whole nother thing, and then the girl that you have seen on the internet comes up to you and you're like, oh girl, I'm tired, sorry, and you don't have it. You don't meet her with the kindness because you're frustrated. And so I'm learning, especially now, to be like, let me go to the bathroom to get it together no matter what. That's a whole nother word and moment, but yeah, we
Right.
have to do it.
No, and listen, we're all a villain in somebody's story,
Yep.
whether or not we like to be. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Because baby, listen, I get overstimulated. If there's an event that's going crazy, if I'm putting all of my energy into that stage, you
Yes.
best believe my face probably looks sideways when we get off, especially if it's chaotic in the back. You know what I mean? I cannot control my face. So I get it, sister. Sometimes we just are navigating this thing called life. And I think that sometimes what people fail to realize, and this is why I have a lot of grace for celebrities. When people are like, oh, they were ass when I met them. I'm like, y'all, people probably running up to these people all day with a camera in their face, asking for things over and over and over again. So I always try to extend grace because I realize that like this human experience is hard as hell. No matter how much money, how many eyes can see you, what the reach or the following is. Um, this life is hard to navigate.
It's hard.
So give yourself grace, sister. Give
Amen.
yourself grace.
Amen.
Um, Speaking of women in the industry, I wanted you to give my listeners some tips about negotiating. One of the things that I feel like I struggle with as a woman in media and a black woman in media, to your point is earlier, was when you're asking for money, it's like you want to stand on business, but you also don't want to lose the opportunity, but you also need the money. In your experiences, what are some tips or guidelines that you use for negotiation? Um, and you kind of spoke about some other women in the industry, because I personally would tell people how much I made. Like if someone's getting my job or I'm not going to do something, girl, I got paid XYZ, so make sure you go get that bread. But what do you
That's a key.
give
That's a
people?
key. That's a freeing key. Continue to do that, and we must do that more.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all, this world ain't set up for us to win. I don't know how much we don't get it. If we ain't getting it, if we are not getting it now, we are not paying attention. Like, we have to be smart. We might not even love the girl. We don't might not know her. But at the end of the day, if she's a black woman, it's going that black dollar in the community. We don't know how it's going to affect a family, right? Like at the end of the day, she's not your enemy. She might even be shady to you sometimes, but she's really not your enemy. And if there's one thing that 2025 is teaching us, it is that. Anywho, negotiating. So I always figure out one, um, what it really takes for me to get there. Well, so for an Essence Fest event, right? You have to get to the space during a high traffic weekend. You have to have flight, hotel. Some people need glam. If you don't know how to do your own makeup, please take a makeup class. YouTube is great. Danessa Myricks has a school online. You can go literally learn from the GOAT, because glam costs $300-400 a day depending on what you're doing. Hair, being a black woman, styling yourself, getting all these things, right? What I just mentioned alone is probably during an Essence Fest weekend is probably 3.5K just for 2 days, maybe even over it if you want to stay at a nice hotel. So that's just your travel, understanding that, right? Because sometimes people do all in fees, and then sometimes people do travel fees, and they'll say this is your host rate is this, and then your travel rate is this, right? Or they'll say we've got you on your fee plus ground and transportation and a hotel stay. Sometimes when people do that all in, you've got to raise your fee because you know how much it takes for you to get there. Then you start working on, then you start figuring out, okay, what's like the going rate. That's when you poll the people in your community, the people who've done it. Just ask, how much did you charge for that? And to depending on the company, I would also look at the brand and what they're used to paying, right? So like there's different brands that activate at Essence Fest. You have the folks who are like presenting sponsors who usually have a little more dollars, and then you have the folks who are like popping up around the space that have usually have less of a budget. So it honestly is different. It varies every situation. But what I try to do is go based on what I believe they have and what it takes for me to get there and be excellent and be myself and be the Gia Peppers that people expect for me to be, that is not stressed because of an Uber late, because you have my ground transportation, is not stressed because I'm hot because I had to run to the other side because you have a cart for me, like all those things in mind, right? um and not stressed because my hair is ugly because I don't like it, like all those things in mind. And then I try to think of like what the moment is asking to. The scope of work is very important. Like if they're asking for post, if they're asking for hosting, if they're asking for you to tap dance and sweep after, that's a different price from if they're just asking you to host or if they're just asking you to post. So you kind of have to figure out the going rate in your community, peer group setting, understanding people can charge different things for following. Don't even matter if your talent is there, which is so sad. I hate that the industry is doing that, and I just pray that that changes. But that there are different rates. But the biggest thing I always say is when you're going in on negotiations, say your rate. Hey, thank you so much for thinking of me for this opportunity. I love what you all are doing, and I think this interests me. Just to be clear, just to say, I'm open to hearing more. My usual budget, my usual rate for this is 10 to 15K, but I'm open to work within your budget restraints as long as it makes sense for me. What were you thinking? Sometimes people go back and forth, but at some point your spirit knows that you've negotiated too far. Like at some point your spirit is like, you asking me to do 40 things for $12. And so it's,
Mm-hmm.
and you just have to be comfortable with that. And someone else is going to take it and they're going to do what they're supposed to do. It wasn't for you. It was meant for them anyway.
Mm.
You have to pay attention to your spirit. If I've asked you for a little too much, then I'm starting to wonder if you see my value as a talent.
Mm.
If I've asked you for a little too much, then I'm starting to wonder what it is. Sometimes you do free things, right? Let's
Yeah.
be honest. Taxes are taxes. If I'm not making enough for me to worry about that 30%, on the taxes back end, honey, just handle my travel and I'll be there, right?
Right.
Because sometimes the room is so rich
Is
that you
more
actually
important.
get fed and that you
Hmm.
get to host in front of people that you never thought were amazing, who would never see you in person.
Yeah.
It's your thing. So you have to really balance it out by situation, case by case. Is this worth my time and energy? Do these people see my value? Is there a value proposition that makes it worth being in this room if I have to go there for free? Is this
Mm.
worth the 30% of taxes that's going to come out of every single check? Right?
Right.
You have to be um, smart. And I would always tell people, first of all, take a financial class. Please take a personal tax course.
Mm.
And anywhere, these people don't teach us nothing, child.
They
But
don't.
and once you go back and forth one too many times, call it a day. Just call it a day.
Mm. Yeah. No, that's really good because I low key fumbled a bag like that. I
Yeah.
was reached out to about hosting a conference. It was a new
Yeah.
conference, and child, hopefully I don't give away too much information. But I had a homegirl who had talked to the person who was throwing the event,
Yeah.
and my friend put my name out there.
Yeah.
And the girl was like, "Actually, I was thinking about using Leah for this event. We
What?
wanted so and so, but she wanted this budget. This was too
Yeah.
much, but this is what we wanted to pay her." So
Yeah.
homegirl calls me and is like, listen, don't tell her I said nothing, but this is the budget, right?
Yeah.
So they email me, hey, we want you to host this event. So I immediately come swinging. I want blah, 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 blah. Now, granted, I don't have a big as following as her, but I know I can host this event and do a good job, right? So I come with the big numbers because, right, I got the I got the inside scoop. So I say I want this much money. Oh, we can't do that. We
Yeah.
can't do that. We can't accommodate that budget. What did you have in mind? So then I immediately try to like nickel and dime from that point. Well, could you do the hotel and this and this? And they're like, oh, we don't know if we can do that. So I was like, you know what? Just do my hotel. I'll fly there. And they came back after a while and was like, you know what? Actually, we're just not gonna have you as the host. And had I sat at my boundaries, I probably would have gotten that opportunity and been the repetitive host of this event that is now growing and thriving. Shout out to them.
Yeah.
I'm sure the person will know who it is after they hear the story. But point being is, I learned my lesson about standing on business about what you expect
Yeah.
because I knew they had the budget. Now, maybe they didn't want to pay me said budget, but at the end of the day, I could have said, take it or leave it. And they probably would have circled back and been like, you know what? Here's the best we can do. But
Yeah.
I done nickel and dime myself so much out of the opportunity all the way because it looked inconsistent on my end. So I
Yeah.
wish at that time I had like a media girl to be like, sis, sit down, sit
Well,
down,
first of
sit down,
all,
sit down.
please call me and ask. You always call me and ask. And if you ever feel too crazy, I always am really big on calls. Like, hey, let's work through this. Because sometimes it just goes like email can be taken so many ways. You know, when we
Mm-hmm.
text, somebody could be like, um, hey girl, you really, you really, you really surprised me. Depending on how you read that, you like, I surprised you. What did
What you
I
mean by
do?
that?
You like, or like, you really surprised me. Wow, like they're holding.
Yeah,
So sometimes text messaging emails don't do what a
translate.
5 minute call could do.
Mm-hmm.
Never be afraid to
Mm-hmm.
call someone. We're a weird society with all the text messages and voice notes. Sometimes
Yep.
you need to call somebody. Hey, can you just be
Mm-hmm.
on 5 because I just want to understand how we can make this work. I'm really interested in making this work. And that's when you say, hey, like, thank you so much for thinking of me. What y'all are doing is amazing. Like, they need to see you, hear you, feel you. So sometimes that is the difference maker, too. Make the call.
Well, Gia, I want to thank you so much for helping me close out my season of OK. And if people want to get in touch with you, learn more about you, where can they go?
Make sure you get Gia Peppers at Gia Peppers on everything. And new season of Healed Girl Era podcast is coming soon. So y'all check that out. And most importantly, y'all make sure y'all stay subscribed here because Miss Leah is doing all the things. Congratulations. I'm so
Thank you
proud of
so
you.
much, babe. I love you. Thank you
I
for
love
coming on the show.
Yes.
And of course, I guess that's a wrap on my first season of OK And. Thank you, Gia. I love you, girl. And make sure you download, subscribe, like, follow us at OK And with Leah. And I guess I'll see y'all next season. It's a wrap. Oh my God, it's a wrap.